Hello and welcome to the Inside Rugby Show. My name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan that's living here in beautiful Cancun in Mexico, and in this video I'm going to be doing a full review of the game that's just finished moments ago between New Zealand and Namibia. Okay, so where do we start with this particular game? Well, first of all, the weather conditions were pretty lousy for this game. We had a lot of wind at the beginning of the game, and then the rain started coming in, and the rain then turned into a torrential torrent. So it wasn't very good conditions for either team to really be playing open, expansive rugby. And of course, we expected the All Blacks to score a lot of tries, and they did in the end. They scored 11 tries against Namibia in this game. But it was about the nature of the way the All Blacks went about this game that was going to be really interesting to people watching on. And if there's any New Zealand commentator that I tend to listen to, it's Justin Marshall. I think he's got a very unbiased and neutral approach to how New Zealand are currently going in this Rugby World Cup, and I tend to agree with him on the fact when he talks about the All Blacks having and should be selecting their number one team to give them momentum as they go through these easier games, get their combinations working well, get their confidence level up, and not giving them too many weeks off. And when the All Blacks made 9 changes for this game, I was a little bit worried because it goes against what I believe is the right thing to do as well. We're seeing Ireland do that in their games. They're picking pretty much close to their A team the whole time and giving these players the opportunity to go out there and put combinations together and build momentum into this World Cup tournament. And I think that's really, really important. And it's going to be really important as we get to that quarter-final stage of the tournament. We saw Ireland really being able to do that in that game against Romania, where they used their number one team and they got out there and they got those combinations working. They played the game at pace, and it must have built up a lot of confidence in them. So I think the All Blacks' first mistake today was not putting their A team on the pitch to start off with, and falling back onto some of those other players that they want to play and give them a little bit of game time, I guess, because with Damien McKenzie coming in, Cam Roygaard coming in at halfback, these are players that we probably are not going to expect to be in there when it comes to crunch time in this All Blacks team in the Rugby World Cup. But who knows? I might be completely wrong on that. So the game got underway in windy conditions, and then the rain came in and made it fairly miserable, but the All Blacks started to put the pressure on straight away. Saw Namibia's scrum capitulating basically from the start, and that allowed the All Blacks to put a lot of pressure on in this game. And the All Blacks started off really wanting to run the ball, spreading the ball wide, holding the ball in hand, which was good to see, and they weren't kicking too much of it away. So rather than giving one of my typical reviews of this game where I give a minute-by-minute account of what happened in the game, I'd just rather talk about different phases of the game. I thought in the beginning the All Blacks started to control the game very well. As I said, they used that scrum to their advantage. They were always winning line-out ball as well. But what I was looking really closely at was their combinations and the way that they were going about doing their job, and they got pinged a couple of times in breakdowns, and they got a couple of penalties against them, which was a little bit unsettling from the beginning. But don't take anything away from Namibia. I think they did really, really well, and they obviously showed up in this game wanting to improve on the performance that they had against Italy. It was only just after the first 15 minutes where something really bad happened for Namibia. Malane, their second 5'8", he got a broken ankle or leg or something, or shin or something. It looked terrible, and unfortunately his Rugby World Cup's come to an end, so play was stopped for quite some considerable amount of time, justifiably so, while they got him removed from the field and made sure that he was looked after. So a very sad situation, not only for the Namibian team but also for Malane himself, who definitely won't be participating in any of the remaining games in the Rugby World Cup. So he got a standing ovation from the crowd, which I thought was really respectful from the Toulouse crowd, and an unfortunate incident to see anybody go home in that situation. Good to see players from both sides of the field going over and giving him a bit of a pat on the back as he was leaving the field on the little ambulance stretcher. Of course, there's a huge gulf in experience and professionalism between these two teams. A lot of these Namibian players are working during the day and then going home and playing rugby and trying to sort out travelling. A lot of them are travelling a long way to get to training. And of course the All Blacks is a very professional outfit, so there is a huge gulf between these teams, but there's nothing like seeing teams like Namibia play at the Rugby World Cup. I think it's fantastic for the game, and it gives these guys an opportunity to aspire to come back and play in more World Cups and do better. And if you listen to the commentary on the television, you would have heard that some of the Namibian players were playing in their 3rd or 4th World Cup, and that's fantastic to hear that, because they've got longevity in the game. And they're also taking back those learned experiences and passing those on to younger generation of players. So a lot of people think these games might be a waste of time. They're not, in fact, because they're giving the countries like Namibia an opportunity to play against great teams like the All Blacks. You could just see in their eyes when they were confronted with the haka before the game started, just what it meant to these bunch of players having this opportunity. And I think that's what rugby's all about. It's about bringing the global rugby community together. And then even facing up against the All Blacks and seeing their skill sets and seeing how they execute some of the players, the Namibian team are going to learn from that. They're going to see that, and the coaches are going to learn from it as well. So I think it's really, really good experience for their team. So as the rain came down in Toulouse tonight for this game, the tries were raining down as well against Namibia. And a couple of All Black players caught my eye in terms of being able to go about and execute their job very, very well. I want to start off talking first of all about Sam Whitelock. He ran on for his 148th Test match for New Zealand today. An absolutely amazing achievement. He's now tied Richie McCall as the #1 All Black international Test player. So an amazing achievement by Sam Whitelock. He's definitely, in my eyes, been one of the best locks ever produced in New Zealand rugby, and also a very good man, a very humble man, and a very well liked man amongst his peers of rugby, not only at international level but also at domestic level. So a big achievement for Sam Whitelock today as he ticked off game 148 for the All Blacks. So as the game got going and into a little bit of a flow, we saw Cam Roigard do his thing at halfback. He's an impressive young halfback indeed, and against an opposition like Namibia, you get to see some of these players with a little bit more freedom and a little bit less pressure on them, and that's something I want to emphasize in my review today, because you might say, well, some of these players played really, really well. Well, we've got to look at what they're up against in terms of pressure and not kind of defense that the All Blacks are going to get from teams like Ireland, from South Africa, from France, and so on. So that also has to be taken into consideration. But you can only play against the players that you've got in front of you, and Cam Roigard did a fantastic game today. He got man of the match for the game, and he scored 2 tries as well for the All Blacks, and this was his first run-on game in the starting 15 for the New Zealanders today. So good performance by Cam Roigard. He's got that different mentality about him at halfback, hasn't he? He's a bigger guy, he's a stronger guy, he's very fast and very good off both feet, and he's got a good kicking game as well. So he's got a very good future, I think, with the All Blacks, that's for sure. And as that first half started to unwind, I started to see more and more of Leicester Fainga'anuku on the wing for the All Blacks and playing very, very well. He looked dangerous. He was very good under the high ball as well, particularly in those conditions. I think he did a really good job, and he was able to get into space and also get the ball back for second phases, and been really, really impressed with Leicester since he's been in All Black. But as he's getting more experience now and playing in this World Cup, I think Ian Foster and the crew and the coaching staff will be impressed with the way that he's definitely developing, and he brings something different to that All Black backline. Now, whether or not he's got enough to force himself into the team in these bigger games that are coming up, I'm not too sure. I think Will Jordan and Mark Talia have probably still got it over Leicester Fainga'anuku, but he's definitely knocking on the door, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a reserves bench position for the All Blacks in these tougher games coming up. McKenzie was controlling things well at 5'8" for the All Blacks. Again, I stress against the defence he was against today. He had a lot more time and ability to run into gaps, but he did do it as well and made some good spaces and ran some good angles and offloaded very well for some of his support players, whether they be forwards coming on the inside or his outside back. So I thought Mackenzie had a pretty good game. So it was 38-3 at half time to the All Blacks, and you kind of thought, well, with the weather conditions that they had, it was a pretty good score, but you could probably see and think that they were going to come out and do better in the second half. And just before the halftime break, Swanepoel, the number 10 for Namibia, made a couple of really stupid errors with kicking, which cost Namibia because they were on attack and they looked like they could have scored some points from that attacking move, but he did two silly kicks that really destroyed the opportunity for Namibia when they went into half time. Anyway, it was an opportunity for Namibia to come out in the second half, reset, and have another go at the All Blacks in the second half. And that's what they did. I was pretty impressed in the first 5 minutes or so in the second half. They came out, they went on attack, and they looked like they had an opportunity to score a try. Unfortunately, they didn't. On the Namibian side, I thought that Stevens was having a good game at halfback. He was darting around and getting ball out as good as he could. And Hardwick at number 8 was very good as well. He's had a lot of experience, of course, against all these All Black players in the past, having played a lot of them in his domestic rugby as well. So he had a very good game. And Unevi and Retlev at lock for Namibia were doing quite well as well. Not so much in the scrums, but they were controlling some of the lineouts that Namibia had. They had a few problems with their throw-in in the lineout, which didn't help them at all as the game went on. And I think that's really the difference, isn't it, between these really big teams and the smaller rugby playing nations, is just the execution of skills. This comes from experience. It comes from playing a lot of games against these big teams, and teams like Namibia don't get these opportunities so much, so therefore they're not put under the kind of pressure that they are in games like this against the All Blacks, and we saw that today. So anytime the All Blacks went into the breakdown and the set pieces, scrums and lineouts, they were very dominant for most of the time, and on the odd time that they did turn the ball over, a lot of it was to do with the conditions of the ground, I think, but also Namibia coming in and spoiling the play on the odd occasion. And I think I'd probably give Namibia the last 10 minutes of the game. I think they played pretty well in trying to put some pressure on the All Blacks, and Rieko Ioane took off for a great try that was set up from the back line, and Richie Mo'unga actually put him through a gap. I've been talking about discipline in this year's Rugby World Cup, and we saw it again from the All Blacks in the 71st minute when Ethan de Groot, the All Black prop, went in dangerously to a tackle with his shoulder to the head and promptly got a yellow card. And we only had about 8 or 9 minutes left in the game at that stage, and we didn't know whether we were going to get the result of the bunker system before the end of the game, but we did. And unfortunately for Ethan de Groot and for the All Blacks, it turned into a red card, so he's going to be going up against a disciplinary committee at some time during this week. So the All Blacks won't be happy about that. It would have taken a lot of the shine off this game and off this result for the All Blacks. They would have been hoping to get through this game with two main things intact: no major injuries and no red cards. Well, they didn't get any major injuries that we know of, but they definitely got a red card, and that will be a concerning factor for the All Blacks as they head further deeper into this year's Rugby World Cup. On the Namibian side, I've got to say, they did really well as far as discipline goes, and they didn't get a player sent off. And when you're under pressure like the All Blacks were giving them during this game, well done to them. Kudos to them for not capitulating to the extent where they had a player sent from the field. So that was very, very good. So impressed with their fullback as well, Lobser, who came, or Lobser I think you say it, came in at fullback on a couple of different occasions and did some really good runs. Got through the All Blacks' first line of defence and then got the ball back well. I think he's got some potential for sure. That I kept my eye on throughout this game was the centre pairing on the All Blacks of Havili and Anton Leonard-Brown, and I've got to say, Jordie Barrett and Rieko Ioane, they're light years ahead of these two guys, unfortunately. And whilst Anton Leonard-Brown did a couple of good things, I wasn't impressed with David Havili too much. I think he made some silly errors in the game, and of course we're waiting on news on Jordie Barrett and when he's going to be back on the pitch for the All Blacks. But I think that Rieko Ioane and Jordie Barrett centre pairing for the All Blacks is a very, very important component of their team, particularly when it comes to their offensive moves and getting that back line moving with pressure. We saw that against the Springboks at Mount Smart Stadium, and when those guys are on a roll, the All Blacks look a much better team. So yeah, not too impressed today by either David Havili or Anton Leonard-Brown. You know, I think in games like this you can be super critical because the margins are very, very big, but I think Nepo Lalala for the All Blacks didn't have a good game either. Dropped a couple of balls, made a couple of wrong decisions, and you could see actually from the coaching box of the All Blacks that they noticed that and they weren't too happy with it at all. Tuanga Fasi and Taki Aho played okay, but again, I think Cody Taylor's at another level at the moment. I think Taki Aho's not playing as well as he was last year, and Tuanga Fasi made a couple of errors as well. So that Ethan de Groot red card is going to be a big issue for the All Blacks, and depending how long he gets sanctioned for, that's going to be a big call. So I think the All Blacks will be a little bit worried about that. Dalton Papali'i was good, very good across the pitch. I like that guy. I think he's got a lot of talent. He's not only good at retaining the ball, but he's also good in the breakdown and getting the ball back for the All Blacks and cleaning out. He was very good and very prominent in doing that today. Ardie Savea, well, what do you say about the man? He keeps going every game, doesn't he? Had another cracking game today. Luke Jacobson, I felt, had a fairly good game until he was subbed off towards the end of the game as well. So overall it was a good performance by the All Blacks. They got 70 odd points against Namibia, as they should have done. I think the conditions probably had a big impact on the outcome of this game in terms of the fluency of the game and some of the things that the All Blacks were able to create with ball in hand. So for Namibia, well, another great experience in playing against the All Blacks, another great experience of playing in the World Cup pool section of the competition, and they will only become a better rugby team, a better coaching team as a result of these kinds of experience. So good on them for getting out there and giving it a go. They did fall away towards this end of the second half a little bit, but they hung in there for the 80 minutes, and as I said, I probably gave them a little bit of dominance in the last 8 or 9 minutes of the game. So where do we go from here from the All Blacks? What do they do now? Well, I would like to see the A team put back in. I think those guys need to get regular rugby. They need to get their confidence up as they get closer and closer to the quarterfinals. It's going to be here before you know it. And as I said in the beginning of this video, I really like what Ireland are doing in terms of putting their A team out, and we're seeing their A team going to be out there again this weekend against Tonga. So let me know in the comments what you thought of this All Black performance against Namibia, considering the conditions that we had, windy and wet in Toulouse for a lot of this game. Had a big impact on the game, I think, from a certain point of view. But I also looked at the All Blacks performance and particularly the changes they made in their team. Did anybody stand out in the All Blacks that I haven't mentioned in this video? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'm going to be following all the Rugby World Cup. We've got another big weekend coming up this weekend. So a comfortable win by the All Blacks against Namibia in Toulouse tonight, and 71 points to 3. 11 tries for the All Blacks, 8 conversions to Damien McKenzie, and a penalty goal by Swinnipole for Namibia. So there we go. That's my review of this game. Thanks very much for watching my videos. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you again soon in the next video as we head into another fantastic weekend of the Rugby World Cup. So until next time, stay well, stay safe everybody. Keep enjoying the wonderful rugby. Bye for now.